Everybody wants four things out of life: health, wealth, love, and happiness. After watching this video, you are going to have a full strategy to actually achieve all of these dimensions without running yourself into the ground. So with that being said, let's jump in. As always, timestamps are down below and video chapters are as follows. Despite the fact that we all desire these things, health, wealth, love, and happiness, most of us find it really hard to strike a balance. Trying to juggle working a full-time job, trying to make time for the gym, seeing friends, pursuing a romantic relationship, calling your mom regularly, catching up on your favorite book, staying informed on global events, cooking fresh organic food at home, practicing self-care, making money in your sleep, catching up on your Spanish lesson all before 10 p.m. so you can be in bed and ready to do it again the next day. That just seems impossible. And obviously I know that was a bit of an exaggeration. I hope that none of your schedules are actually that busy, but the same sentiment remains. I remember times in my life when I just had so much on my plate that even the simplest of tasks felt so overwhelming and debilitating. I didn't even know where to start. When we have so much on our plate or so much that we want to accomplish, it can be very overwhelming and stressful, and it is just not sustainable in the long term. So how do we balance the many responsibilities and goals that we might have in our life? My solution is to turn it into a game. Why a game? It really all comes down to dopamine, the reward chemical, the molecule of more. When we have the right amount of this chemical, we feel energized, we feel happy, and we feel focused. There's also a whole book about dopamine. It is called The Molecule of More, so I will link it in the description if you are interested. Okay, so how does it work? As humans, our brains are hardwired to seek out behaviors that release dopamine in our reward system. So you get dopamine after you complete a task or you do something that is pleasurable. Evolutionarily, this would have been things like eating, drinking, competing for survival, things of that nature. And nowadays, in the modern world, there's a lot of different ways that we get dopamine. There are healthy ways, like when we set goals or we express ourselves through a creative outlet. And then there's also some less than super healthy ways that we can get dopamine, like through eating junk food, sugar, social media, and we will talk about some of those negative aspects of dopamine in a bit. After we complete whatever task is pleasurable, our brain releases dopamine. And this makes us feel very good and wants us to seek more of that feeling, which is why dopamine is linked to motivation as well. So going back to some of those unhealthy things like junk food, sugar, social media, when we are engaging in so much of that, we still get dopamine, but it's a cheap way to get it because we don't really have to work that hard to receive it. And what this does is it actually fries our dopamine receptors. It leaves us feeling very tired, unmotivated, or unhappy. See, when you are setting a goal and working towards it, or doing something that is pleasurable, there has to be a little bit of a challenge. It can't just be too easy to obtain, otherwise we're just going to consistently be seeking that until it's fried our dopamine receptors and we're almost numb to it. So if you were to treat your life as a game, you would be tapping into the power of dopamine in terms of motivation and rewards, but you'd also be using some skills of delayed gratification, because in any game, you have to actually do things to win or succeed. Luckily, in this game, there's not really winning and losing. It's more so just winning because we're creating our dream life by using this whole metaphor of our life being a game. The first time I heard of this idea of life being a game, I was reading a book on personal finance, and it talked about how life is a game and the amount of money that we have in the bank or our net worth is essentially our scorecard to see how well we're doing in this game. And I thought the general premise of this claim was interesting, but I didn't like the fact that it focused solely on money, because it really isn't the only thing that matters when it comes to living a happy, fulfilled life. You can have all of the money in the world, but if you don't have anybody to share it with, or if your health is poor, or if you're just unhappy in general, then that money doesn't really do anything. And that is where the 8 dimensions of holistic wellness come in. By turning our lives into this game, we're essentially going to be using a mixture of habit tracking, delayed gratification, and positive reinforcement to sustainably and enthusiastically create the life of our dreams, where we're not just looking at money or we're not just looking at being physically fit, but we are looking holistically at how to create a life that we absolutely absolutely love. So let's get into what the 8 dimensions of wellness are. Make sure you are listening to all 8 because the last 3 are going to arguably be the most important. We're then going to talk about how to turn this into an actual game. There's going to be some rules, a scorecard at the end. Okay, so with that being said, let's jump in. The emotional dimension is essentially about understanding your feelings and the feelings of others. You're working to manage your emotions in a constructive way and hopefully feeling positive and enthusiastic about your life. Physical activities that you can do that comprise this dimension might be things like journaling, talking to a trusted friend, or even setting a boundary to set yourself up for emotional success. The occupational dimension is about doing work that you find meaningful and purposeful. It provides you a sort of personal satisfaction and overall life enrichment. So in terms of physical activities, this might be things like exploring your talents or planning or carrying out something that is meaningful to you. If you are enjoying this video so far, I would love if you could like it and subscribe to my channel because it really helps me out. The environmental dimension is pretty straightforward. Things like going outside, hiking, gardening, and overall being in nature is one aspect of wellness. Next up is the financial dimension. This one is very important because having a strong foundation here is what keeps us out of survival mode. If you've seen some of my other videos, I talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and when we don't feel like we have enough financial resources or enough financial knowledge, we are put in a state of scarcity, of survival mode, and it's hard for us to be able to create our dream lives if that is kind of at the forefront of our mind. So listening to a podcast about the economy, learning about investing, setting a budget and sticking to one, or overall just learning more about finances, whether through YouTube videos or books or talking to a friend, that's all super important in the financial dimension of wellness. The social dimension, pretty straightforward. Maintaining relationships with others, feeling cared for and caring for others. So spending time with friends, hosting a dinner party, giving back to your community, contributing to the community. These are all examples of the social dimension. The spiritual category is about finding purpose, value, and meaning, not just in your work, but in life in general. So things like prayer, meditation, studying, or practicing gratitude, those are all examples of spiritual activities. The intellectual dimension is about expanding your knowledge and pursuing curiosities. In my opinion, I think you should be learning something new every single day. There's just so much in the world that we could learn about, and so we might as well start. Activities such as reading, writing, creating, or learning are all well suited in this category. And then finally we come to the physical category. Again, very straightforward. You're moving your body, whether this be through hiking, running, swimming, dancing, Pilates, whatever, but you're doing something physical. Very straightforward. Okay, now let's talk about how to actually play. So the objective of this game is to get enough points by hitting certain categories and seeing how you stack up at the end of the week for a certain reward. All of these 8 dimensions are very important in order for us to live a healthy and balanced life, but it's not very realistic for us to be able to hit all 8 of them every single day or even week or even month. So an equal balance in all 8 areas is not the goal. We all have our own priorities and goals and philosophies on how we live a good life. So the main focus should be on achieving a personal harmony that feels most authentic and meaningful to us. So to keep the game simple yet interesting, achievable yet with a challenge, you start out by trying to hit these 3 main buckets for the day: physical, intellectual, and spiritual. You might have heard this be referred to as mind, body, soul, or you might have seen this graphic floating around Pinterest, but these are the essentials. Every day we should be doing an activity for our brain, something for our body, and something for our spirit or our soul. So for this game, think about it like you're making a smoothie. These first 3 components are the basic ingredients. So maybe it's the fruit, the liquid base, whether that be almond milk or juice, and a source of protein, like you're adding in some protein powder. Those are the basics, and you can earn up to 3 points a day for completing these. Then we have our other dimensions, our emotional, social, occupational, environmental, and financial dimensions. Think of these add-ons kind of like toppings. So these are the chia seed, seeds, the honey, the supplements, the granola. The smoothie is still nutritious and delicious without these components. However, when you add in these extras, it makes it even more flavorful and beneficial. So you'll get an additional point every time you add one of these categories into one of your days. Some categories can be stacked and some categories are just completely separate. So for example, if in the physical dimension of wellness, you normally go for a run on the treadmill, but today you decide to go for a run throughout the neighborhood or at a nearby park, then you can give yourself not 1 but 2 points for that, because you're also adding the environmental dimension. You're getting outside, which is super beneficial for our health. So that would be an example of stacking categories. Another example of stacking would be, let's say for the intellectual dimension, you decide to learn a little bit more about investing. So you are using your brain, you're expanding your knowledge in some way, and what you are choosing to expand your knowledge in also falls into the financial dimension of wellness, so that would be 2 points instead of just 1. If they're not stacked, they might also just look like additional categories. So let's say for the day you did Pilates, that's physical, you read a book, that's emotional, and for spiritual, you decided to practice gratitude, and then in the evening, you go out to dinner with your friends. That would be in the social dimension, so for the day, you'd have a total of 4 points. Okay, so how do we actually score this? The scoring system that I have created is assuming that you're tracking this Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday is when you kind of add up the points and decide on what your reward is. Of course, you're gonna have to adjust this scorecard and the points based on your own motivators. None of these are supposed to be a punishment, even if you accomplish 0 of these tasks during a whole week. As you'll see, it's really just supposed to be a motivator. We really want to use it to just gauge how well we're doing. Of course, all of this is incredibly customizable. If for whatever reason you feel like those 3 base categories do not align with your life and your goals, of course, adjust it. But as a baseline, I think it is a good bet to count on categories in the mind, body, and soul as a daily goal. So, assuming you are keeping track of this Monday through Friday, if you score more than 21 points, then it's exceptional. It means that you are going above and beyond for yourself. And not all weeks we're going to be able to do this with travel, caring for others, unexpected things come up. So it's not like every single week we're trying to strive for this, but let's just say we were really diligent one week about caring for ourselves holistically. Now you get to spoil yourself with something that you might not usually do. Something that you would be likely to normally say like, oh, I shouldn't, but you actually should, you earned it, so go ahead and spoil yourself. If you are hitting 15 to 20 points by the end of the week, 15 would mean that Monday through Friday you did at least all 3 of those categories, intellectual, physical, and spiritual, and then you probably did a few other extra things. Then you're doing great. Reward yourself in some way. Maybe you decide to order food in, maybe you decide to go out and get drinks with your friends, something that feels like a reward. But the distinguisher I have is that if you're getting more than 21, then you're really spoiling yourself with something that feels like, ooh, this is a lot. If you scored in the 12 to 14 points range, that means you're approaching. You're getting close to hitting those daily 3. So to make up for some missed areas, one thing you might want to do is a chore that you didn't have time to do during the week. It's not really supposed to be a punishment. If anything, you're probably going to feel good because you got that chore out of the way. So that's what you're focusing on if you're in the approaching category. And if you have less than 11, then it is time to reflect. It kind of signals that you need to recalibrate and see where your priorities are and where you might need to realign. So just ask yourself a few questions and check in with yourself about how you're doing and how the week went. What are your energy levels like? What phase of your cycle are you in right now? Are you feeling overextended or burnt out? Really just check in with yourself. Again, this is not supposed to be a punishment. In fact, journaling is actually really beneficial for our mental health. It reduces stress and anxiety and all sorts of things. It's more so just to check in with yourself and genuinely see, okay, how am I doing? How well am I balancing my life? If there's enough interest or you guys find this really useful, I'm also happy to create or put up a template where you can easily track this week to week. So just let me know in the comments if that is something that you're interested in. Hopefully by keeping track of the habits that you keep, you're going to be motivating yourself and using that dopamine to continue to prioritize things that you deem meaningful in your life. Because that's all we can really strive for, right? Going back to those basic 4, health, wealth, love, and happiness, the more we are aware of what we spend our time doing, the better we can match it to align our priorities with where we want them to be. If you have made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate your support. I would love if you could give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and yeah, thank you guys so much. I will see you in the next video. Bye!